Welcome to Watch Symposium. I'm Austin. All right, so I've got a couple of comments to read for you today, and the first one has to do with why Rolex can't keep their steel sports professional models in stores. And there are two theories that explain that, the Thorpian theory and the Danian theory. If you haven't seen that video, link in the description, check it out. Now this is from Danny himself, of which the Danian theory is named after. After some pleasantries, Danny writes, on Hodinkee's 48th podcast episode, June 30, 2019, at minute 640, Stephen Pulvirent talks about Rolex receiving a dispensation from the Canton of Geneva to keep the factory open on Saturdays. From what Stephen is hearing, Rolex is running 3 shifts a day, 6 days a week, which doesn't sound like something a company that is restricting supply would do. All right, so if Stephen is to be believed, I think that's another data point in favor of the Danian theory. I'm assuming they were running 3 shifts a day, 5 days a week. If they've upped it to 6, then that shows that they're trying to produce more watches. So does that totally blow the Thorpian theory out of the water? I would say not completely, because they could still be stockpiling these really desirable steel professional models and not releasing them. So it's just another data point and kind of interesting. But I will say that the Thorpian theory, a lot of people gravitate towards it because I think we all love a good conspiracy theory. And I think it gives us a boogeyman. It gives us somebody to blame, i.e. Rolex. The Danian theory is a little less sexy. You know, the idea that they're trying, but they just can't meet the worldwide craze for these steel professional models. It's just not as fun a theory to think about. But for me, I think they're equally believable. I really have no opinion. I just don't think we have enough information. But again, it could be a little of both, right? Rolex could be dragging its feet a bit because they see that these models are becoming really popular. And Danny moves on and he talks about the tool watch aspect of Rolex. And this is the bit that I referenced when I was at the airport. He writes, I will concede to my chagrin that Rolex is no longer the same company. It is no longer the company that makes tool watches for combat divers, fighter pilots breaking the sound barrier, or astronauts. While past astronauts would wear their personal GMTs in space, it would be laughable to think a serviceman would wear a maxi case Rolex today in space or water. Rolex uses its history of watches for professionals to sell watches to the hyper-rich and connected. And it is increasingly moving into hyper-luxury territory. The Rolex of old would have never made the business decision to make a GMT Oyster available in white gold only. This Rolex does. This is a different company than the one of the 80s and 90s, and I feel more and more detached from it every day. Well, I agree with everything in that statement, and I too feel detached from the current models. For me, it's more from an aesthetic point of view, but also I feel that they're not tool watches in the same sense as they are. So that's why I'm more of a pre-ceramic guy. All right, so he says that they're moving into hyper-luxury territory. Yes, I think we've arrived. I think we've arrived at hyper-luxury territory. Back in the day, to buy a Rolex watch was a big deal. They're really expensive. I mean, it's still a big deal. They're really expensive still. But back in the day, you would get together your 10 grand, which was hard. That was the hard part because not everybody could do it. And you would go to an AD and you could get your watch, right? And again, it was a tough thing to do because spending 10 grand on a timepiece is sort of insanity, right? But that's the way it was. It's not good enough anymore, okay? If you get together your 10 grand, good, but you're only halfway there. You take that 10 grand and you lay it on the counter at an AD, they're not gonna sell you the watch. They're gonna tell you they don't have it. Maybe they don't have it. Maybe they don't wanna sell it to you, but your 10 grand isn't gonna get you that watch. What you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to take your 10 grand back up off the counter. You're gonna have to add another 10 grand on top and then a little smidgen more. And then you're gonna have to go to a gray dealer and you'll be able to get that GMT. Or what you can do if you really wanna go through an AD is you have to buy a two-tone model, maybe a couple precious metal models, and then if they see fit, they might let you buy that GMT Master 2 for 10 grand. Now, it's going to cost you 50 grand. Granted, you'll have a two-tone and a precious metal watch too, but it's going to cost you about 50 grand to get that GMT Master 2. So I think we're definitely in hyper luxury territory. We're in sort of luxury on top of luxury. And yeah, the Rolex of today is completely different. And I still like the company. I still enjoy seeing what they do. And, you know, I feel like it's not 100% different than the Rolex of old. There's still some good models. Still some good models. There's still some models that would appeal to me, is probably a better way to put it. The current Explorer, you know, Danny wears an Air King when he flies. So, you know, I think just a straight up, you know, 116000 is just a great all around sort of tool watch, and doesn't look too fancy. You know, for me, the really point where I really thought they really don't even see themselves as tool watches anymore was when they started making polished middle links on GMT Master 2s when they were coming out on Oyster bracelets, the first BLNR. And for me, that was sort of the admission that, yeah, these really aren't tool watches meant to be used in the same way. We're sort of hitting up market, okay? Because it was that visual confirmation. It was that sort of empirical data that said we're really not a tool watch anymore. Yeah, those polished middle links, they just said everything to me. I bring those up a lot. I think that was the end of an era for sure. But I think the end of an era isn't just one thing. I think it's a gradual shift, and perhaps that's because Rolex, you know, is honest with the fact that there are better watches for tool watch situations. You know, there are quartz watches and G-Shocks and dive computers and Astrons, and a mechanical watch in competition with them is a bit of a joke. And so it would be disingenuous if Rolex were to pretend that, yeah, this is what you need to travel in. I mean, they pay homage to the tool watch genre because it's popular and we all love that. But I think they realize that that boat has sailed. And so while they can pay tribute to it and retain a bit of that DNA in their watches, I think it makes sense that possibly they see their future as more luxury than tool watch. And I think it's a shame too, but it makes sense because really the tool watches of today, you know, a G-Shock, you know, that's pretty much perfection, I think, in terms of a tool watch with all those functions and dependability. Hey, is it as artistic as something like this? No, but it's more practical. And I think even Rolex knows that. It's hot in here if you haven't figured that out. All right, thanks, Danny, for the comment. And what do you guys think about Danny's comment? Let me know. See you next time.